there was actually a great quote from the guy that was running Ferrari USA when I was working for them, and he said, "It's every Italian's dream to play football for Italy or work for Ferrari, and I'm shit at football."
Yo, what? Yeah.
Yo, that's a sick.
That's a
That's
gangster line. Welcome to another episode of No Investment Advice. You got Trung Phan, Bilal Zaidi, Jack Butcher. What's going on, lads? Good to have the gang back. Jack, I know you weren't feeling well. Thanks for making it, mate. I know you're still on the mend, so.
Wait, are you feeling not well?
But we're good. I'm all right. I'm probably 75% getting hit from all angles.
We go.
So wait, hold on, yeah. Jack. If you're 75%, that means you're down 25% health-wise and portfolio-wise. Is this correct?
Look at that transition. Look at that Trung transition. Yeah, what's more down, your health or your portfolio this morning, Jack?
Hard to put a number on it, boys. They're both in decline, though. Yeah. Everybody listening. There's nobody listening to this whose portfolio hasn't taken a hit.
Actually,
I wouldn't think.
Warren Buffett. Well, he's definitely not listening to this. But
yeah, exactly.
How about him sitting on $340 billion of cash? He owns 4% of all outstanding T-bills in America right now.
Doesn't he have more than the government? What's the random?
He has more than I think the Fed. So dude, hold on a second.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yeah.
He unloaded 100 bill of stock last year. 75 bill of it was Apple. Added to his cash pile. 340 bill right now. He's sitting on.
Do you reckon he's got it in his Robinhood account getting 4% or that Wealthfront or what's his, what's his deal?
People, I mean, a little bit morbid, but if we're being honest, he knows too. His annual letter just came out. He's like, it's 94 years old. Does he have one last at bat though? That's the question. Is there one more? Does Big Daddy Buffett have one more in him?
Who's he going to join, Trung? What's going to happen? The last
Bitcoin. Can you imagine if he just plows into Bitcoin?
He just went all in.
Runs the U.S. government. Perfect segue. But anyway, tell the listeners what we're going to talk about. We kind of touched on it.
We do want to recap after last week, the reserve discussion. Me and Trung were speculating quite a bit. So I want to get Jack's take on that. We got some solid answers around what's actually happening. Quickly break that down. There was this idea of the ability they're going to have to be budget neutral to buy more Bitcoin. What that actually means, potentially a few ideas around that. Obviously, we've got to talk about the market sell-off. We're all a little bit down on the portfolio side, as we just discussed before. But outside of that, we've also got YouTube at 20 years, boys. Isn't that mad? How old does that make you feel? 20 years of YouTube. Oh. The number one podcast platform, apparently, as well. And a lot of
basically television at this point. Number one
basically television, yeah. So we're going to break that down. And then economics of Ferrari. We've had this one in the pocket for a few weeks. And this one's going to be good. Want to get Jack's take on that as well. And then if we get time, we've got another DeepSeek moment from Manus. How do we say that?
Allegedly. Yeah, Manus, an AI agent. Yeah. It was
okay, cool.
just to tease the listeners that have been following AI. It's apparently a combination of a couple things we've talked about. Operator, where you let AI take over your computer. Deep research, where you get these massive McKinsey type of research reports in 2 minutes. And then it's using Claude packaged by a Chinese consumer company, which is why
actually using Claude.
They refactored Claude and they're using Alibaba's new open source model. But the reason why they're calling it DeepSeek 2, when we get to it, is because DeepSeek itself is a model, but this is like a consumer product that might be able to get traction. And out of China, people are quite like, wow, another one? Okay, but that's it. Let's get into it.
And then, Trung, you had
I sent you meme of the week.
Meme of the week. Let's get it going here. I haven't watched this. Jack, have you seen this one already? Or is this
not with sound? I've seen it flying about though.
Live reaction. I haven't seen this. Let's just get it going here. Michael Saylor simultaneously being the most serious yet relaxed person in the room. Hilarious watching the whole summit.
For the listeners, you don't even hear anything. All right, you can mute it.
Oh, I mean.
So somebody just took a video of the announcement of the strategic Bitcoin reserve and put captions above Saylor's head, and he's like the most chill guy,
funny.
Right?
This is funny. Him just taking pictures when everyone's trying to keep it real.
He's sitting next to David Sachs,
Brian
Brian Armstrong. Who else is there? Actually, Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary. And then Trump's always going to come in and talk about Bitcoin. Actually, can you mute that, Bilal? I got to ask, who is Brian Armstrong sitting next to other than Sachs? Do you know who that is?
I don't know who that
guy is.
This guy
Bo Hines, his name is.
What does he do?
He's like a Trump crypto advisor.
Okay. All right. So
like
some major
Trump
hitters.
ties for a long time, I think. Yeah.
Got it.
Got it.
All right, let's get into it.
Should we recap what happened then?
And then ask Jack what his thoughts.
Trunk, do you want to recap, like, after we spoke, what was different from last week? Because we essentially were speculating about
the crypto reserve.
And then it was announced there's basically a Bitcoin reserve separate to the crypto stockpile.
Yeah.
Bitcoin reserve, essentially, I'll try to summarize what I remember. The Bitcoin reserve, they're saying they will not be selling. They're committing to keeping Bitcoin long term. And the
200,000 that they had just acquired from basically government actions or seizing from various criminal activities, they're holding those 200,000.
And then they also
keep it.
And then they're also going to do an audit of the government because they don't actually know how many there are. So that's another big part of it. So there may actually be more. We don't fully know. But the main thing is that they're saying they're committing to not selling it. The other part, which wasn't taken as well by the kind of I'd say deluded people, to be honest, because I didn't expect this to happen anyway. But the idea of like buying a bunch more with taxpayer money, they basically said we will not buy net new Bitcoin unless it's done in a budget neutral way. So they don't want to use taxpayer money to buy Bitcoin, which to me makes sense. Like I didn't expect that to be part of the bill anyway.
But that's why Bitcoin dumped on the news, right? They dumped about 5 to 10% because they were expecting the citizen taxpayer bailout of Bitcoin, but that didn't happen.
I will say compared to the original thing that we got before we recorded, to me it was way more positive in terms of the fact they kind of put Bitcoin in its own thing, and
which we talked about, right?
Which makes
That's
sense.
The digital gold. They did mention that they would allow the Treasury to do a crypto-specific reserve where you could buy and sell opportunistically. But again, this is all very early stage. Let's get Jack's thoughts on it. Jack, what were your expectations? What was your reaction?
I think it's a good result based on like what he was tweeting the week before, right? Whereas like the first tweet was Cardano, XRP,
Ripple,
and Ripple was like, oh man, this is and it went ballistic off that news. All of those, obviously, that he mentioned by name, and then just acknowledging Bitcoin by itself as a commodity with like fair distribution and putting that in its own thing, I think is, a great result. Doesn't muddy it with these other things that have people attached to them, basically. Like if you lump all of this stuff together, there's a very high chance in the like near or medium term that something's going to go horribly wrong with one of these entities led by people. And it's in a different, Bitcoin's in a totally different category from that. So I think majority of people I saw celebrating that, even if you are interested in like the classification of digital assets outside that, having those two things separate is a good thing. And like not muddying that narrative of, Bitcoin as a commodity that a government has a responsibility to own a portion of if this network continues to grow the way it has done. It's just fiscally responsible not to sell that on the market, right? You're getting it for nothing too. I mean, even like I guess there's this game of nuance in here too, is like forfeiting that stuff costs money too. Like going after these, confiscating this stuff costs taxpayer money. So I think it's all like a weird, not just doing a market buy is like what they're saying. We're not just going to like load up Coinbase and just start smashing the buy button as the US government, which makes a lot of sense, right? It's going to be a little bit more nuanced than that.
No, but Jack, I think you nailed the interesting point there. There was also even criticism of keeping the Bitcoin because there is an opportunity cost, right? You could sell it at the market I think whatever, 20, 30 billion, I can't remember the numbers, and you could help that to reduce the debt, right? Because by holding on to it, as me and Bilal talked about last week, obviously there's a volatility angle, but there's certainly an opportunity cost to just holding that Bitcoin. And let me ask you this, because we came up on this last week. Probably the most legit criticism on this is you are enabling an alternative to the dollar system. You might be, the US dollar ultimately might be inevitable that it's no longer the global reserve currency in a decade or multiple decades time. So you're trying to get ahead of that, but you're also kind of cutting your own legs out. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the reserve currency, like people look at that in different ways, right? Some people, it's like, I'm not going to be articulate enough to explain this, but there's a argument to be made that issuing the world's reserve currency is not necessarily a position you want to be in forever. Like, I think that there's like big political opposition on whether or not that's something you want to maintain. Like, it is a privilege, but it's also, there are costs on that privilege too. And I don't know. I think the whole thing is kind of surreal, and the fact that, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that being even a remote possibility, you would think, if you go back in time and say, oh, the US government says they're going to create a Bitcoin reserve, you would think this thing would be have gone absolutely ballistic on that news. But there's obviously a lot of other factors at play. But it ran up on the expectation that it would, right? It ran up around the election.
I
guess so,
to 110.
And then people are kind of pricing in the best case scenario of oh, we're just never going to stop buying this stuff. And even the press conferences they're holding now are not, they're not ruling that out. And there's, I actually had a pretty good back and forth with ChatGPT on the budget neutral strategy stuff of how could that come about? Let me pull it up quickly. And this idea of, I went back and forth with it for a while, of budget neutral strategies for Bitcoin acquisition without taxpayer funds, and in order of difficulty. The first one it came out with was asset forfeiture. Second is federal land resource leasing. So Bureau of Land Management, leasing federal land for energy or mining. Licensing fees. So if the SEC starts to charge exchanges in Bitcoin as opposed to dollars. Renewable energy sales. Give an example. The Texas grid often curtails gigawatt hours of excess wind energy, potentially millions annually in Bitcoin mining revenue, Bitcoin payments for government services, and then Bitcoin-backed bonds. I'm sure they're thinking about ways to get stuff over the line in those categories, as opposed to just I guess the best parallel I've heard in the last few years is the oil reserve too. You have a strategic amount of oil. And this is you have to go deep into the Saylorisms, I think, to appreciate the
power projection.
Oil, you're oh yeah, if we get in a situation where you can't buy oil at a certain price, you have a stockpile and the country keeps running on that energy, right? This is a different idea entirely, but there's some parallel there of if this becomes some dominant capital network, we want to own a reasonable chunk of it.
And that's why to round up what you're saying is that would be the bull case for why you would even potentially put the reserve currency status at risk. As you said, they call it the exorbitant privilege, right? But as you noted, there are negatives to that privilege. One negative is you completely lose discipline as a country, and you just print forever. Yeah. And that people will buy it up to, as we're seeing, Actually, like, China is reducing its buys of U.S. treasuries, right? And obviously Russia had to do that after they invaded Ukraine for similar reasons. And the other I mean, big issue with being a issue of this nature is you have to have open capital markets, which theoretically causes more volatility, right? And there are downsides. And I like how you kind of framed it, where maybe if it becomes a dominant monetary network, you're preparing yourself for that. Side note, China has a strategic pork reserve, which is hysterical, but I'll leave it at that.
You said strategic pork reserve, you said? No, wait, and by the way, while you're pulling, I just want to pull up the short 30 to 50 second video of him signing it and what David Sachs says to him. I think that's actually worth quickly listening to for people who haven't seen it. Just because I would pay attention to like how he's pitching it to him and his kind of reaction as well. I don't expect him to have, he's obviously said to them, like, you guys go figure this out and tell me. And so this is just the video here.
Today we're signing, this is very historic, an executive order establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve and digital asset stockpile. This is a promise that you made throughout the campaign, and today we're keeping that promise. The reserve will be capitalized with Bitcoin that the federal government already owns, so it won't cost taxpayers a dime. This is like a digital Fort Knox for digital
Fort Knox, I can.
And premature sales of Bitcoin over the past years cost American taxpayers over $17 billion in lost value.
There we go.
Because we didn't have a long-term strategy.
Right.
Now we do. So.
And this is something you believe in fully?
100%, yeah.
Okay.
And the whole community believes in it.
Very good. And I made the promise, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so you got to get the idea. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but
there's another quote from the summit. Did you see that? Where he goes, "They say never sell your Bitcoin."
Yeah,
I don't know about that. Who the hell knows or something?
Yeah.
He says. Fuck's sake.
That
No,
was
wait, Jack,
incredible.
you sent a one. You sent a one pager on like. I mean, what was the thing that you sent me? Basically, he was like, that was Trump's way of. Again, he didn't want to. He did something there that was kind of there's a reason he said it like that. Well,
What, to
do you
cover
remember,
himself?
Like hedging,
hedging.
yeah.
What the hell? What the hell do I know?
It is.
Yeah. It sounds like someone who has a podcast called Not Investment Advice, just
Exactly.
covering all angles in case things dump. But, I mean, that was quite a funny one as well. But the reason I wanted to play that was, first of all, he clearly, I mean, it's not like he's knows the whole thing inside out, obviously, right? He's definitely, I like the way he said, you believe in this 100%. That's like, he's saying like, I trust you. Do you 100% believe in this? And the guy's like, yes. I don't think it's that illuminating, but I just thought it's interesting to hear also the savings and that cost the taxpayer X amount of money because we sold too soon, essentially. And the digital Fort Knox, I thought was also a good framing for that as well. So yeah, I thought it was interesting just to see that as well. But Jack, what were you about to say there? You had something?
No, I don't know exactly, but it is just another Overton window widening situation, right? Like I think that puts them in the top, 10, 20 holders of Bitcoin in the world.
Yeah.
And as a signal,
Definitely.
like it's really like, what's the downside of that? The idea that if they're not taking capital risk with taxpayer money, it feels like obviously the voting block was a big part of it in the campaign, where Coinbase publishes this number. There's like 50 million Americans own crypto, which I don't know how accurate that is. It sounds like massively inflated to me, but they must be getting it from somewhere.
Well, I feel like anyone who's got literally even like $20 in their Coinbase account, it probably is.
Just downloaded the Coinbase app. Fair enough.
Yeah. And it also doesn't mean all those people are single issue voters, obviously, right? Like, I think that's...
No, if you screen during the Super Bowl, if you put your QR code up to the screen for the Coinbase QR code.
True. That got them a few million users. But it feels like... the Bitcoin thing is only one small part of the signaling, which I think is also like develop crypto businesses in the US, like bring capital back onshore that has been like hesitant to develop and build companies around crypto in the States, like to signal that you support basically the foundation of the ecosystem. And then all the other stuff that they've been doing, like there were SEC cases against Uniswap, OpenSea, Yuga Labs, name it, Consensus, all of these crypto companies in the States, they dropped them all. So it's, I think, just the ecosystem in general. You are now in an environment where you've gone from like complete hostility, no transparency whatsoever, to please try and create value around this industry. You have permission. We support it. Go do it. Like that is, that's massive. Like outside of just the, like, we're going to hold this asset. Like it's a complete shift in
signal
mentality around, building on top of it.
Well, Jack, if you go back to like this time last year, we obviously covered it on the pod. If we just take our minds back to that moment, it was, is there going to be an ETF? That was this big thing. Is there going to be approval for Bitcoin ETF? Is there going to be an Ethereum ETF? Maybe it already passed by this time. I can't remember what month, but roughly the beginning of last year, let's say. There was obviously a lot of hostility, like you said. There were a lot of open cases. And if you just think of the Elizabeth Warren style, negativity towards the whole industry, like fast forward 12 months, regardless of what you think of all the other political stuff going on, just specifically for that sliver of technology industry, whatever you want to call it, it's a 180 turn, right? Like if you just said that back then, like this would be the US government, the most powerful government in the world, signaling they're holding on to this thing, that would already be enough. Like you said, we would have already hit 100K. We would have already had all these other things happening. I think it would be very positive, but like we said, all of this is all relative. Like people already assumed a lot of this was happening, so they've brought things back a little bit. Trung, I think we talked about last week. I do think a part of it was the drop was partly because of this, but it's also like the wider market, right? Like stock market is down. There's tariff. There's fears of a recession. There's all sorts of shit happening. Uncertainty. There's war stuff being talked about. China's tweeting out some stuff, like there's all sorts of stuff going on. So I don't think none of this is in a vacuum. So either way, I think it's a very interesting development, and we obviously have to cover it here. Anything else on the budget neutral? Oh, go ahead, Jack.
No, I was going to say it's not specifically related to this, but I've noticed this like narrative gaining way more traction. It's always been around, but just like macro headlines, all of this stuff is like, you could basically ignore all of it and look at the like global liquidity, and everything moves with that. Like it's literally one chart, M2 money supply, more liquidity, more people buying Bitcoin, less liquidity, less people buying Bitcoin,
and basically all assets pretty much, right?
Real estate, just like stocks. It's like whenever I hear that mentioned, I'm like, why are we like, there's like people spend 16 hours a day watching CNBC or whatever. It's like either just money supply is expanding or contracting, and if it's expanding, people speculate on this stuff, and if it's contracting, they don't. But obviously the thesis for Bitcoin over a long period of time is, and has been proven to be true, that like it always nets out higher than where it began. Like even if there is movement in between, the supply of money just goes up and up and up and to the right forever.
Yeah. Trung, thanks for that, Jack. Trung, anything else on that before we move on, mate?
Yeah, let's not talk about the market sell-off as well.
Yeah,
I'm good.
I guess there's
really nothing to say about the market sell-off, right? It's like it's everything we kind of talked about.
How bad is it in traditional markets? Like what are we talking about?
What's it, 10% down?
It hasn't reached bear market yet, but if you look, I mean, you remember how hard this thing was ripping, and the thing was like, Trump is the Trump tariffs and this idea of trade war and recessionary expectations is kind of the background. But for the last 6 months, every network's been like, this is like the most expensive the stock market's been since like the dot-com bubble, right? It's like, funny enough, it's 25 years. Yesterday was 25 years to the day the dot-com bubble hit the top. So there was what was it? The CAP, was it something adjusted price earnings ratio, the CAPE. The whole point was that you'd reach a level now. I can't remember what the S&P was trading at. Was it 35, 40 times earnings? The entire S&P index. That was like a point that hasn't been reached since like dot-com era. So the entire market was already overpriced, and it was waiting till like it was just people were wanting a reason to risk off, right? And
Trung, like you said, like the last 2 years, we obviously covered it as it was happening, but we've had like record-breaking years, 2 years in a row.
Yeah,
like 20+%. I think S&P, if I remember correctly, the last 2 years have been insane growth. So to me, like coming into this year, I think we discussed it. Like even having a flat year felt like an okay scenario, to be honest. And
exactly.
it's only March. Like we could easily go through a little bit of a hump, and then you know, things are coming down. Interest rates have to go lower. Things start pumping again. Like who knows? And you know, to be honest, who cares by this point? It's just you got.
No, it's just too much, right? It's just like
it.
Let's just pretend it's 2022 again, and none of us looked at our portfolios, right? That's literally the best strategy at this point. If somebody's doing that, what's the Trump 40 chess move, right? It's crash the economy so that forced Jerome Powell to cut interest rates. I don't agree with this take. He might be doing it unintentionally, but what might actually end up playing out is if you look at the expected interest rate cuts now, all the major banks it went from, I think, 1 for the entire year to 3 or 4 now. And that'll help reduce the deficit because you're paying less interest on the debt. So that's like, I mean, you're playing with fire if you're doing that intentionally. But at the same time, the market was extremely overheated, and this debt just needs to get resolved some way or another, right? Like it's gonna come due.
They've been very, I don't know. Again, I don't think anybody can question that that's been their intention, accident or not. Like they've been on.
Oh, they're
like
signaling,
on
right?
CNBC every day. Like we're getting this down. Yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah, you're right. The messaging. They've been saying it. They've been extremely clear about what they're doing. Whether or not it's the right thing, I don't think anybody should be surprised. To Jack's point, it's like literally the Treasury Secretary has just been saying, "Is like, you know, cheap stuff forever is actually not the American dream," or like we're gonna get this down. And so they've been quite explicit. I agree.
Oh, the last thing I'll say is you saw the thing with Trump saying, basically, like, we live in quarters here, and like China's looking at like 10, 100-year view.
Yeah.
Well, I think he said 100-year view. And he's basically saying like can't look at the stock market, which is interesting because I feel like last time round he was very much looking at the stock market and kind of bragging about how
I was looking at
things
Trump
are going.
coin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, let's see how it goes. Very interesting. Good to cover it either way, boys. Should we move on to our next topic here?
Yeah.
I would love to learn more about the budget neutral ideas in the future. Jack already listed some off. I do think we'll see some more developments there. But we'll wait to get more information on that. Anything else on the market sell-off? I guess we kind of just covered that there, so maybe we move on from that.
Let's
move on to YouTube hitting 20 years. I mean, what a wild... I mean, that is wild.
February 14th, 2005. Yeah, wow. February 14th, 2005 in San Mateo.
Do you remember the first YouTube video you saw? I mean, I'm trying to think what... It would have been one of those dogs on a skateboard or a cat on a skateboard vibe, you know? Or Charlie bit my finger, like those old school ones.
Well, let me list off some things for you, and then we can talk into our memory lane about this. But the 2 things I want to cover is early days of YouTube. I want to talk about how Bilal transformed the platform, and then we'll talk about how it's now television. Did I get a chuckle from Jack on that one? Yeah, I did. So
you got a chuckle from me at least. Yeah.
YouTube was founded by Steve Chen. No, I saw your chuckle. I was covering Jack's face. Steve Chen, Chad Hurley, and Jawed Karim, 3 former PayPal employees. So you're talking about PayPal mafia.
Isn't that crazy again? PayPal mafia, man.
Unbelievable, right?
We got to do a whole episode just on all those people because there's so many.
Just knock them off. It's insane. So actually, you want to know the original idea? This the Variety had a great 20th anniversary kind of look back. So the original idea was to launch a platform as a site for video dating. So
oh wow,
yeah, dude. So like you post a video of yourself.
Everything's dating, man.
Yeah, no one's even done that.
Some form of dating, you know.
But you know what's crazy? Still to this day, there isn't like a video first dominant platform. Like
I guess
Tinder.
On the dating apps too, because obviously none of us are on it. But like
I know still photo.
People do like a voice. There's like a voice thing on some of them, I think.
Yeah,
but probably not videos. I don't know. We sound so old talking.
Yeah, we sound so. Well, actually, Bilal, to your point, the very first video was Kareem. It was just a video of him, me at the zoo. It was a 19-second clip.
Oh yeah, okay.
You probably remember that. Here it is. You guys are gonna shit your pants when I tell you. The first YouTube video to hit 1 million was Ronaldinho kicking the. You're gonna.
Jack's trying to not laugh. I just heard his little...
watching Bilal's reaction to that. Yeah.
I'm like, he's drunk so hype. He's like, you're gonna literally shit your pants.
Shit in your pants. So Bilal, here it is, November
clench.
2005. Gonna clutch.
Sorry, go.
6 months after Kareem uploaded that first video, Ronaldinho's Nike ad hitting the crossbar 3 times in a row from like half field. You guys remember that? That was legendary. Yeah. The first video to hit 5 million, you guys will know this one. Lazy Sunday, SNL, Andy Samberg.
I don't actually remember that one, to be honest.
You remember Lazy Sunday?
Maybe when I see it, I'll remember.
I don't know either.
All right, let me fast forward a bit to 2006. Google acquired YouTube, famously, up there with Instagram, Facebook for the best deal ever. They acquired it for $1.65 billion in stock. Here we go. I got a questions for you guys. Do you want to know why it was $1.65 billion? It has to do with PayPal.
Yeah.
They wanted a deal that was 10% more than eBay's acquisition of PayPal. How about that for a flex?
Really? They just wanted to say like,
yeah, they're just like,
did it.
Yeah. You just want what did you acquire for? eBay. eBay acquired PayPal, 1.5 billion. Give us 10% more.
Isn't that just the funniest thing, man? Like, just at every level, people just comparing themselves to their friends. To like, I just need to go tell Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and David Sachs. Oh yeah, we did a little bit better than you guys now. But no, what else? Have we got a few more milestones?
Yeah, I'll just fast forward to now. The past 2 years, Americans have spent more time watching YouTube on their TV than any streaming service. So this is the idea. I mean, before the call, well, I'll ask you guys. Let me pin this. I'll drop one last thing. YouTube is estimated to be worth 400 billion as a standalone company now. So there's doing 50 billion revenue.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's probably on par with Netflix. Similar evaluation, very different business model, obviously, right? YouTube's primarily ads, about 80%.
Should be worth 10 times more than Netflix, honestly.
It's the second biggest search engine in the world. Training data, user-generated content.
Yeah. Number one podcast, apparently.
Exactly.
As well now. Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw it to you guys because before we went on this chat, we had talked about it. YouTube as TV. Netflix tried to replace TV. Turns out YouTube did, because YouTube, I think, gets 1 trillion hours a year, something crazy. Netflix is still about 200 billion. It's insane.
Yeah, so the numbers are just stupid by this point. Don't even make sense.
Crazy. Yeah. YouTube as TV. Let's start with Bilal. You said it's on your TV, right?
Yeah, I watch it on TV. And it's amazing to think, because I'll just add a couple other milestones. December 2010, I was about 1 year into the Google job. That's when YouTube TrueView ads launched. So that was, like we've talked about in the pod before, but the really big innovation in advertising, because you only pay as an advertiser if people chose to watch 30 seconds of the video as an ad. And so that was a big deal. Before that, you would just pay per view or whatever. And so yeah, I would add that in there as like a big milestone, because that obviously
that changed the ad model.
Yeah, it changed the ad model. And then also other people kind of adopted that. Later, that was very much like a branding thing mostly. Later, they add like TrueView for Action, where it was trying to get people to click through from videos. That it works incredibly well. Like I use it all the time. Lots of people using it. That's where most of the revenue is coming from. They added subscriptions later. I don't know the exact number. Have you seen in any of the write-ups? What is it, like 10% of people are paying or something?
No, I think
5 to
10. The actual revenue mix is close to 80-20, which is pretty impressive.
Okay,
so
that's pretty good.
10 billion in subscriptions. So maybe what was it? YouTube TV is killing it, right? They charge like $80 a month.
For the actual, that's got cable streaming stuff. Yeah.
I think they're 50 to 100 million subscribers, which is like very impressive, because you remember Netflix is also trying to do ads now, but you can't compete with Google ad stack, right? But they're trying.
Yeah. Do you guys use it at home on your TV? I have it on Apple TV and I use it pretty much every day.
I do use it on my TV. I've noticed that. Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
No, carry on. Finish.
No, that's it. I was saying, do you use it on your TV?
Yeah, I was just doing a little ChatGPT inquiry, boys. You want to guess
the trillion? Yeah.
The ratio, the content, the amount of content, the ratio difference between YouTube and Netflix. What do you think that would be?
Oh, like the library.
How many more pieces of content?
Minutes.
How many more pieces of content? No. Straight up
actual
pieces. Of content.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's crazy.
10,000 to 1. 100,000 to 1.
No, I think it's more.
2.1 million to 1.
Million, yeah, I was going to say. Because if you think like anyone uploading any video.
There's 14.8 billion videos on YouTube. And that's why I think like
That's crazy.
Watching it on TV, like the Netflix algorithm is like you have way fewer objects to coordinate with, right? It's like
Nodes, yeah.
oh, we recommend you this 12-hour season that you might like or not, versus like here's another 30-second video that we know you're going to laugh at because you just laughed at these other 400
The long
videos.
tail is just far greater on YouTube.
It's
I'm
absolutely
assuming.
crazy, man. And like that behavior is so weird too, different than like choosing a channel, choosing a piece of content to watch. Like the TV stuff, it feels like sport, and like it's only stuff that can't really be replicated on
User gen.
like that you have to watch in real time, basically.
Yeah.
You know, like
Another thing is,
that's
I
the
think-
only moat left, right?
Yeah, and also, Jack, I think YouTube has all of, because it has 1-minute videos, it has 10, 15-minute videos, it has hour-long, documentaries, it has hour-long, like, debates, podcasts, 2 hours long. It's like the full gamut, whereas, like, Netflix is more of the hybrid between regular TV, so you've got, like, 30 to 60-minute to 1.5 hour films,
I think the
basically, right?
median YouTube video, it has 41 views. Like
That's crazy,
like,
the median as well.
Yeah, so that's like like it's like Jack loves to talk about the power laws, and when we say power laws, we gotta say that with power laws.
It's probably become even more like skewed
power
in
law
recent years.
Well, here's
Because
a number with
go on.
creators. Only 4% of the estimated 50 million creators earn more than 100,000. So actually, that's still not bad,
What percent?
right?
Sorry, what'd you say?
4% of
4%,
50 million. That's still a lot. That's what is that? 10. That's still like 2 million people.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
like 2
YouTube
million.
monetization gets a bad rap, but it's pretty incredible. isn't it?
55%,
Compare that
45%?
to even TikTok, Creative Fun.
It's incredible.
Like the
It's
CPMs are way
essentially
higher.
it's like 98% to 2%, right? Like what is TikTok's creator fund? Zero. Effectively.
But it kind of makes sense. Like if 4% of people are making essentially a living, like 100 grand is a real living. Like that's a very good salary in most places. So that is actually significant. I thought it'd be even like 2% or something like that, 1-2%. And obviously you've got the high end, like the top 1% are making way more, obviously.
No, well, the Mr. Beasts of the world.
Did
right?
you boys do Mr. Beast last week?
No, I was gonna say I had that on here. Did you?
Yeah, we might as well. He's a YouTube guy.
Let me
Let's
pull
do
it
it.
up. I've got.
There's only
some
in
of
an
the
interview
numbers here.
recently saying he spent all his money or something.
Well, can you
You
guys
heard
see
that?
this? Yeah. This is our friend of the pod, Shield Pit Desi on X. So he said, Mr.
2 weeks
Beast,
in a row, man. Friend of the pod, great guy.
second most followed person in the world after Ronaldo, which is just to that must be Cristiano, not R9, the original Ronaldo. But 500 employees, burned $200 million in the last 3 years. Content and commerce, which is chocolate, each do $250 million of revenue, 125% year-over-year growth. Growth is in commerce, Feastables plus other brands. Chamath is rumored to be the largest outside owner, and I've heard him say on All In, like he's invested or whatever. He always referring to him as Jimmy. So yeah, I mean, pretty crazy. I mean, that's we've talked about this throughout the pod, right? Like, who's going to be the first billionaire YouTuber? I think they already, on paper, a lot of these guys already are. KSI and Logan Paul. I don't know. I think their company's worth over $1 billion, right?
KSI and Logan Prime?
Yeah, I think that must be over $1 billion. No, I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that.
No, I think they've done hundreds of millions in sales. Although I've heard that their go-to-market, like honestly, dude, have you guys had Prime? It's not good. Like Gatorade,
I'm assuming
is
it's just
significantly better.
caffeine, sugar, hype, right?
And then the joke with Chamath that they always have is, he's also all about health. I met with Brian Johnson. We did.
I'm saying, sorry, real quick,
promoting
3.2 billion valued apparently. I don't know if that's true.
All right, let's hit that. Let's keep it going.
That's pretty bad.
It's
That's pretty
everywhere,
mad,
man.
Pretty crazy. Yeah, they're the official drink of Arsenal as well, which is pretty mad. Pretty mad. Anything else on YouTube?
1.2 billion of sales in 2023.
Yeah, so that would put. I'm assuming they'll be worth over $1 billion then, right? So, anyway, pretty mad. I mean, Jimmy, aka Mr. Beast, has had some. He's been in the news, in and out for some. It's been a little up and down for him, but pretty insane numbers. Also, randomly, did you guys see any clips of the YouTube All Stars match Did you?
No,
This
what
is like
was
a
that?
football game.
Tell us more.
Jack, did you see this? You might have a little bit more UK on your feed, but it's essentially Wembley Stadium, which is what 80 to 100,000 people. This is where like the home of football. Like this is World Cup finals have been there. It was YouTube All Stars versus like Mr. Beast team or something like that, and it was all of these guys playing against each other with a full crowd of people. They raised like 5-6 million for charity, but it's insane. I think it's like the third year in a row they've done it. But I just saw this and I actually watched some of the highlights. It was like funny. It's like Speed. Do you guys know who Speed is? The crazy streamer. He's hilarious. He's in there. You got Logan Paul. You got all these YouTubers. It's just to me. If you took like any of our parents, or honestly, a lot of people even listen to the pod. You showed them that pitch, you'd be like, who the hell are all these people? You've got 80,000 people coming to watch them. Is pretty mad. So another kind of crazy YouTube moment, I guess. There, Trung, you still there? Can you hear us, or did you get logged off? Let's just let's keep that in just so we got his thumbnail. All right.
Sorry guys, I had a domestic situation.
Okay. All right. You gotta go do something. Are you all right?
No, go ahead, guys. Go ahead.
All right, put the oven on. All right, cool. All right, let's talk about economics of Ferrari. Trung, I know you wrote about this. Do you want to pull this up, or? I've got,
let's. The reason I wanted to talk about it, and the reason we saved it, was because of the old friend here, Jack Butcher. So let's ask Jack a couple of questions about Ferrari first. Jack, I know you're big in Porsche, the 911. You 911 guy?
I like Porsches,
yeah.
Tell me about the Ferrari. As a non-car guy, I just know Ferrari is a top dog. But can you tell me how much more of a top dog is it?
Well, I would say the distinction between those two primarily is one, the F1 team. Like a lot of, like the DNA of Ferrari is the GT cars, like the only reason they sell cars, or the stated reason from Enzo Ferrari, is to compete in F1. So there is like a extremely romantic product story in Ferrari. It's like this is a pursuit that is purely aimed to make us better in competition. And like, we're going to fund our racing team by building these cars and selling them to people who love to watch racing. And over time, I think there's been like pockets of less successful years for Ferrari, but for their F1 team hasn't been like, I know you guys know Michael Schumacher, like the glory years of Ferrari were just like unbelievable, just like undefeated, incredible drivers, like win every race. And that hasn't been the case for, I know they just signed Hamilton, but in recent history, they haven't been like the top dog team every year. But they did get, I don't know what year they got bought by Fiat, but like when
was it Fiat?
Yeah.
Filed. I believe so. Like back in.
They took a 50% stake in the Ferrari in 1969, but then they went public.
They went public as Ferrari. Like what was that? 5 years ago?
Oh,
10
damn!
years ago
Fiat increased their stake to 90% in 1988, and then it went public a couple of years ago.
It was from 1969 to 2016, apparently.
Okay, is that according to AI Overview, your former employer?
Yeah. So who knows if it's true, but I think that's right.
Well, I did work for them for a while, and this is like the kind of the relationship they have with their customers. I believe in America, at least, the average Ferrari owner has 5 cars. The average.
And
it's just
each
a whole.
car's, wait, 5 Ferraris or 5 cars total?
5 Ferraris.
Oh my god, dude! So that's each car's $500,000 minimum.
Yeah, minimum. And like there's obviously very sophisticated requirements for buying certain cars, right? Like if you want to buy this car they're only making 250 of, it's going to be only allocated to the people who have, you can't walk in the dealership and buy it, right? And when they went public, they had to kind of pivot from the hyper exclusive, no transparency. Like here's and that was like the bear case for it back then, and was like, well, Ferrari's only valuable or interesting because they only make a couple thousand cars a year. And I think they went up. I think the first year they were public, they made 7,000 cars, which is still nothing, right? Like you barely ever see. Like
Well,
you have to be in
Jack,
a
I'll break the
extremely
numbers down
wealthy
for
city
you.
to see a Ferrari all the time. Go on.
Absolutely. So I'll give you the numbers because you're touching on a couple themes here, which is how it became. We buried the lead here as we always do in NIA. So thank you for listeners. It's my fault. But Ferrari became the most valuable car maker in Europe, which is insane if you think about it. Right? It's been public for 10 years. It's 10x its market cap in that time. So, dude,
Incredible.
Jack, do you own Ferrari stock? And if not, do you regret not buying Ferrari stock?
I don't. No, and I guess I do. I should have. I got a good story. I've been to the factory too, but you carry on.
Which okay, we'll continue that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
pin
also,
that.
I want
We'll hit that.
while you were sharing that, Jack, contrasting it to the factory you worked in for the other car. What was it?
Honda.
Honda?
Honda, yeah.
Honda. All right, go on. Yeah, let's talk about the difference between the two, too. We like that.
I'll run through the numbers and we'll get to Jack's differences. Okay, so since its IPO, Ferrari's market cap around 10x. It's about a $80 to $90 billion market cap company now. This is the crazy thing, and Jack hinted at it. First year made 7,000 cars. Last year, it made 13,750 cars. Do you know how few cars that Volkswagen sold 9 million cars last year? So it overtook Volkswagen as the most valuable automaker in Europe. Volkswagen sold 9 million cars.
That's insane, man.
But obviously, its market cap is only $50 billion because Volkswagen's going through some major issues. I mean, the big problem is that Germany got completely clapped by China and the Ukraine invasion with Russia because Germany's entire industrial base relied on cheap energy from Russia, and they relied on China for export markets. But now China's EV industry it's the top in the world, if we're being honest. And then German cars, the internal combustion engine, done. Like 20, 30 years, everybody's moving electric. Germany's the big part of Germany's economy is built on having all these supplies for industrial ICE. What is ICE? Combustion engine, internal combustion engines. Way more parts than a EV, right? So the industrial economy for Germany is in a lot of problems. And VW, which I believe a third of it is owned by, I can't remember which state in Germany owns VW. VW ownership, Germany. But anyways, let's get back into the numbers. So Jack's still shocked about the number, right? So the big part of that, Ferrari's operating margin is 28%. VW's 4%. So there you go, right? A very different business.
You know what? Actually, go on.
I'll just say Lower Saxony owns a third of VW. That's a state in Germany. Obviously, they're tied. The reason they own it is because they want to make sure there's a lot of employment in the area. The whole company's getting clapped. And then Porsche tried to do the playbook. It IPO'd in 2022. It thought it could do the Ferrari playbook, but the problem is that it makes 300,000 cars a year, right? And the average, I don't know what the average Porsche is. Probably 100 to 200,000, maybe 150,000. The average Ferrari is $400,000, right? So they're just not the same type of company. The Ferrari CEO, Jack's gonna appreciate this, Benedetto Vigna. So I probably screwed up his name, but he says Ferrari is not an automotive company; it is a luxury company that also is doing cars. Jack, what do you think about that?
What's funny, LVMH, Ferrari, it's like that European, like that's where the edge is in Europe, right? It's like go for the sell a handbag for 40 grand. Yeah, I'll put a $400,000
with
car.
The story, right? It's all about the story. It's like you said, I love how you started with Enzo because, that's how LVMH or that's how Hermes is able to sell. You have the story. You got the Birkenbag story. Here's Enzo's incredible line. Ferrari will always deliver one less car than the market demands. Just luxury 101 right
he's
there.
good.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Limited supply, Trung. There you go.
Yeah.
Go on, Jack. What are you thinking?
Price insensitive buyers.
Correct.
That's another one of the things that we always. One of the things that we always used to work on was the their customization programs called TaylorMade, and there's a filthy amount of margin in that, where it's like, oh, we're gonna have your initials etched on the seat, right? Or we're gonna have
It's like Pimp My
the seat
Ride,
belts
but
are gonna-
done in an
done
elegant
in
way.
in a tasteful way, exactly.
It's not a PlayStation
And like-
3 in the back. Do you know? It's
Exactly.
a
Then they
flat
do
screen
like
TV.
they do like runs of 10 on some models, right? Well, they'll make a $5 million car and they'll make 10 of them. Like there's like, it's so unbelievably contrast that to something like VW, right? Where it's like you don't even have the equipment or the infrastructure or the talent to make a run of 2 cars. It doesn't make any economic sense. Maybe they make concept cars and show them at shows and stuff, but Ferrari will make, a custom car for a client for $10 million. Yeah, the factory is cool, and people like, obviously there was actually a great quote from the guy that was running Ferrari USA when I was working for them, and he said, "It's every Italian's dream to play football for Italy or work for Ferrari, and I'm shit at football."
Yo, what? Yeah.
Yo, that's a sick.
That's a
sick.
gangster line. That's hilarious.
Good, right?
And I'm sure football, and that's good.
And there's, another thing, excuse me, boys, they do over here, they have this thing called Ferrari Challenge, which is, and I'm sure they do it in Europe too, but for their like top end clients, you can literally rent a race team and go around
my
the country
God.
like 30 dates a year. You'll compete. You know who was in this? What's the guy on Shark Tank?
Herjavec.
The alarm guy. Herjavec. Yeah, he's big into
Yeah,
this. Yeah. So there's a bunch of
big race car guy.
people that will fly around, like pay Ferrari to move their cars around, run a team. Like they have, like their brand is up there with,
It's
I don't know,
incredible.
it's got to be top 5 brands in the world, right? It's just unbelievable. And they must shift a filthy amount of merch as well. Like
I was about to say their merch game is
Hamilton deal has got to be huge for them. Like, remember those naughty Puma trainers, Bilal? I bet
I
you
was just
remember
gonna
those.
say, yeah, they had. Isn't that kind of amazing though that they were able to do? I don't think I had one of those, but I must have had like a jacket or something of those, or a hat or something like that, like a nice aspirational brand without being like too. Like they were able to keep the value there without getting cheapened too much, which is quite hard to do.
In a weird way, it's like that barrier between the race team, and you want to expand that out to as many people as you possibly can, right? You want to, like, some of that stuff is like so ugly as a product and not expensive, or it's like licensed, like they license their image out to these sports brands or to like Legos. There's like
JD
their
Sports.
brand is just unbelievable level of resonance, where it's almost like as long as they keep making amazing cars, it doesn't, like, you can tap
That's
into
true.
that infinitely. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty mad
I love
though.
it.
And
I love
Trung, in your post about this, I'm just going to pull up the graph here. This market value.
That's
This
unbelievable. dude.
Ferrari is the red, up and to the right. Porsche VW coming down here. I mean, that is pretty mental. I mean, is this
look at the
market cap?
tickers.
Yeah, market cap.
Let's talk about the tickers
Yeah,
too.
the
Jack
tickers
loves.
race. Ferrari's ticker is
Race,
race.
yeah, that's cool.
Porsche's P911. That's pretty sick too.
Which
to be
one? Hold
honest.
on. Let's ask. Which one's better? What do you guys think's better?
Oh, race is great, man.
Race is
Okay,
hard
race.
to beat, isn't it? Yeah, that's
P911
that's a real word.
goes-
P911 is too specific. It's talking about one of their products, right? Race
Okay.
is
Yeah.
like DNA.
Race is like owning the word. That's like,
By the way-
that's like smile.com, like we talked about, or those .coms
Exactly.
that Sailor was buying up.
Alarm.com,
or
Michael
whatever.
Saylor, baby.
Was that Sailor buying those, or was that someone else? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what was it? What was
you know,
Sailor buying?
Cadillac just announced that they got an
.com.
F1 team.
I like that, man. Dude, that's all you can do now with these car companies, man. You have to have that. You just have to. The clapping that's going to happen with these Chinese auto manufacturers as ICE cars are trying to shift to EV, it's going to get nasty, man.
I was going to say, the clapping is ridiculous.
That's a good term. Yeah.
That's a great word. It really rolls off
Yeah.
the tongue, that one, Trung.
The
I like that.
clapping, well, because
Also, Jack, you know when you said about
clapped.
it's every Italian's dream to play for Italy and work for Ferrari. I'm I'm really shit at football, basically. That reminds me for some reason of Duke Nukem. Do you remember Duke Nukem? Time to kick ass and chew bubble gum.
course.
A whole lot of gum. Incredible line. Incredible line. But anyway,
let me wrap up
go
quickly with two Ferrari thoughts that Jack had touched on. Jack, you're saying the average Ferrari owner has 5 cars. And your access to these limited, as Bilal said, limited supply of vehicles. So let's say next year they make 15,000. All these owners, you're going to be fighting over this 15,000, right? So how do you get on that list? Well, this is what they say now. They've added a couple layers. It's not being a first-time owner or being an owner is just not enough anymore. Have you bought a car in the last 3 years? Because you're getting priority if you do. How active are you in the Ferrari community? Right? How many events have you attended? Are you part of the racing program that Jack just talked about? Have you taken an old of our Ferraris and restored it? Because we will know if you restored our car. And if you do, you're going to get moved up. Dude, it's like, it's the one of the most exclusive clubs in the world, and then they make you work, right? So Jack, I actually have a question. How does a first-time buyer enter this? Do you need a referral from an existing owner? Is that the only way?
It depends on No, it depends on, I think maybe recently this is not the case, but like there are like some of their GT cars. I actually did campaigns for a couple cars years ago because they were like expanding the supply and they weren't selling out of this stuff. But like the California, I don't know if you remember that. There's a Ferrari called the California.
They've had models that didn't perform as well.
And they I don't know if that's the case right now, but I think if you went into a Ferrari dealership and said, I'll buy whatever you could sell me, I don't know, depending on the climate, I would imagine you could get a car. There are also dealerships that are outside of the official network that I would think, builds you some cachet owning like pre-owned cars. But my understanding is it's still possible to buy or get or like order one for, a year or 2 years out on a build on the lower end. Like even other car brands that are high end ish, like if you want to buy like a Porsche GT3 RS, it's like you're not getting allocation for that. That's like a 3-year wait. And whenever anybody gets that slot, they just buy it and then they can sell it back to the dealership for a premium even. It's such a bizarre, it's a really bizarre market, and they have to obviously control the supply in that way. But Ferrari's also about to or just released SUV. You guys see that? Purasang, which I know Enzo wouldn't be loving that. Oh. It's called the Purasang. It's a 4-seat mini SUV Ferrari.
Doesn't sound like a race car.
Competitor to the Urus, I think they'll probably just absolutely crush on that though. These things are, unfortunately, there is a lot of demand for such a vehicle, even though it is, I would say, not quite in line with the Ferrari DNA. Yeah.
Fair enough.
But they'll sell them.
All right, man. Did I have any more questions on Ferrari? Oh, Jack, you need to tell us the factory.
Yeah, we want to hear the factory vibe. And every time Jack does this, I think of 8 Mile. I just think of Jack being Eminem in 8 Mile, working in his factory with the cars. You know what I mean? Detroit life.
Well, mate, Ferrari and Honda are very different, obviously.
Honda is, that's why I'm interested to hear the contrast.
There's a Honda Civic, or I worked on a line that did Civics. Yeah, just Civics. And one comes off the production line every 70 seconds. So,
yo, that's wild. The complete opposite.
Probably up there with the VW level of output. And you get 60 seconds to do whatever it is you're supposed to be doing on the car. Like almost every process is around a minute long. So they've split that up obviously into these very, very mechanical tasks one by one. And the car is on a conveyor belt, goes down the line, and you do your thing. You read the sheet, what's going on this, put it on, and it goes to the next person. Ferrari is obviously totally different than that. You go, it's like this beautiful, clinical environment. There's like an engine block and one dude is like inspecting it, looking at every little tiny angle on there and like in there hand finishing stuff. And yeah, just couldn't be more of a contrast. It's like a artisan's workshop versus a factory, basically. And 13,000 cars a year is that's still a pretty impressive output. What is that per day? They're still like knocking out
40,
a dozen
40
cars
a
a day or something.
Yeah, 40 a day. Is that right? How many factories do they have? And where's the
One,
factory?
I believe. Maranello in Italy.
Would you say 13,000 a year? It's like 30
Yeah, 14,000 a year.
35.
40 a day, right? 40 a day.
Yeah, that's a lot of cars.
Actually, Jack, so
35.6. There we go.
that's a part about luxury, right? You cannot remove the brand from where it was created. Like Hermes always has to be done in Paris.
Yeah, and like watch Geneva, you got to make your watches in Geneva.
Yeah.
Like the DNA and like Lamborghini was started down the road from Ferrari too.
Well, that's got a
And
great story, right? The dude, Lamborghini, was annoyed that Enzo wouldn't give him a whip or something.
it was a tractor company, Lamborghini, to begin with.
Oh, that's
There's
right.
a lot
Yeah.
of amazing. There's a lot of amazing lore in the supercar world.
Well, you
there.
know, our
Like,
boy
just the best.
David Senra has done a couple episodes. I think he did a 900-page book about Enzo Ferrari. If Founders Podcast people get in on that, you don't need me to tell you. He's already getting wheels pumped. Dave, if you're listening, I know your wheels and tires getting pumped by some hitters, but we're always happy to throw you a bone. No, but seriously, listen to his Enzo Ferrari episode and the Lamborghini one. He found like an out of print one. Enzo Ferrari Founders Podcast. But yeah, you guys want to just do episode 220 Founders Podcast.
All right. Is there a last thing here, Trung, on the DeepSeek moment from Manus? I don't know how you
I
say
can
it.
go through this quickly because I know like
Let's go through it. Just real quick and then we can wrap it
internet
up.
action. So I'm sure some of you X addicts, Twitter X addicts, probably saw something about Manus, Manus. It's an AI agent out of China, presumably is able to do agent stuff, which is what OpenAI had tried to do with Operator a couple months ago. And then Claude, also Anthropic's AI brand, also tried to do something around taking over your laptop. Basically, you can just give it an instruction and take over your computer and do stuff, right? It's like, blah, tell me to book a flight to Portugal and get me in a hotel. It'll just do it all, right? That's the idea around an AI agent. A lot of these things have kind of flopped. They like kind of just fail. They're just, if a large language model hallucinates, then an agent just completely messes up. And like, instead of flying you to like Portugal, I'll give you a bus ride to New Jersey or something, right? So apparently though,
You'd
Manus.
be very disappointed with that. Could you imagine? You end up in, oh my God, that's one.
Well, dude, actually, the reason this is funny
down
and
the
relevant,
shore.
down the shore is like Siri. This is a big thing in the AI world. Siri has said, Apple has said that they're pushing their Siri release. I don't know if you guys remember, we talked about WWDC last summer. So summer 2024, Apple does this big Siri release for Apple Intelligence. All these things you can do with your phone. It's like, what time's my sister arriving? Can you send her an Uber? Siri, do this for me. All those things that they did in that video, all the ads that they ran, none of it works. Not a single thing that they said that they're going to do in these demos worked. So they're getting a lot of heat for it. And they said over the past week that they're pushing Siri out to 2026, 2027. Mind you, they acquired Siri in 2010. Think about that. The lead that Apple had in conversational AI, obviously a lot of things have changed. Me and Bilal last week talked about Skype, acquired in 2011. Hysterical that these two brands acquired by megacorps just got completely clapped. There we go again. There's a word. But so Manus comes into the fold though, because Manus looks like something that is actually kind of delivering on what a lot of people thought Siri might do. But the reason people think it's a DeepSeek moment part 2, teaser at the top, is this is a very consumer-first product. And it was able to capture in our fragmented attention economy, like for a solid 48 hours, tech Twitter was all about, it's Manus. What's Manus? Can you give me an invite? They did the scarcity thing where you can only get invited to the platform, built up a hype around influencers, around a lot of tech influencers, which is a very Western playbook. So the reason people are interested in Manus is not just, is it a DeepSeek moment? It looks like another Chinese consumer win. And I'll end with 3 things. Number 1, I don't think Manus has any chance of taking off in America because this thing will get clapped. There's no way you're going to let an AI agent, even though it's run on Claude, take over in corporate America and the government. They're just not going to allow that to happen. Secondarily, interesting thing it shows is that China is kind of hitting out the park with consumer first AI, like getting people excited about these things. And one thing I heard that was quite interesting, the China Talk podcast, recommend that also. Last episode was about Manus. Interesting take it had was that America is so concerned about the foundation models like XAI, ChatGPT, OpenAI, the GPT, Claude from Anthropic, that's kind of the focus getting to AGI in America, whereas China's just like, oh, cool, new technology. How do we consumerize it, right? It's like, which is interesting because China traditionally doesn't have this reputation of necessarily consumerizing really well, although in the past decade that's really changed. The last thing I'll add, which is interesting, comes from the China Talk podcast, is what is the legal system going to be around AI agents? I want you guys to noodle on this. Imagine you get that ticket, you want a ticket to Portugal, you get sent to New Jersey, and then like you get in a car crash or something bad happens. Who's legally liable at this point, right? Is it the agent? Is it the underlying model? Is it the user?
Well, imagine the terms in using the product will
I think they cover.
Absolve.
What do you say?
Yeah.
Absolve. Open AI of any consequences whatsoever.
No, but so
But
that's
is it fascinating? Like, there's the same debate is going on around this, like crypto custody and crypto for agents. Like, who pays the tax on that? Like, people are trying
AI
to build
agents?
in crypto, like there are these agents that are launching tokens and earning fees. And like, where, who is the legal entity that is responsible for paying the tax on those fees? It's all like, trying to interface with a system that is nowhere near written to handle these kind of use cases. Pretty fascinating.
I'm sure the government will find a way to. Yeah, that's funny though, because they'll find a way to get their pound of flesh. Like, who's it coming from?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. So that's for future edge of the internet, people. But other than that, I think we're good to rock and roll. I got a boogie.
Yeah,
let's do it.
No, great. We covered all the topics, boys. That was great, action packed, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll see you guys next week. Cheers. Bye bye.
Peace.